how did we name this program? We called it
Expressions.
Expressions?
From the early 20th century.
Okay.
And I'm going to start here with if I can turn this around here. My first subject is Kilroy was here. And I have my, also here is some sheet music. Kilroy was here. I think this was put out in 1946. Okay, how did this come about? Who was Kilroy? Believe me, everybody in the world has come across that phrase. James J. Kilroy, who lived in Boston. He was on the Boston City Council, and he was in the Massachusetts legislature. During World War II, he worked at the Fore River shipyard in Boston Harbor. He was a checker, noting that the number of rivets driven by workers who did piecework and were paid by the rivet. So for every rivet they put in, they got paid. He would come along and count the rivets when they were ready to go to another department, or if it was the end of the day or whatever. And on this ship, who probably has 1 million rivets, I don't know how many rivets are on the ship, it's endless, but he would take a chalk and mark around the section that this particular riveter put in, and he would count the rivets and note it on his paper. Okay, when he would leave, when he was done for the day, and some other checker would come in because they were working, this was in World War II, very early in World War II. When he went off duty, he would, the riveters would come in and erase the chalk. And then the new counter would come in, they would say, hey, I did all these a little while ago, and he would put them down and they would get paid for it. Well, I don't know how many riveters did that, but the foreman of that area noted that these riveters were really high paid. They were getting really good money. And he said to Kilroy, why don't you do some research on this and find out what's going on? So Kilroy found out they were erasing the chalk. And he says, well, I'll fix this. And he went out and he bought a king-sized crayon. And now he marked them off with this crayon that could not be erased. Ordinarily, these ships were painted after that, and they would paint over this. But it's World War II, and they were in bad need of ships in Europe and the South Pacific, and those ships went out into the ocean with Kilroy was here all over them. So, very early on, and this is probably 1941, people all over the world now so noted. And everybody was saying, who is this Kilroy? And of course nobody knew, and they made up their own stories on who Kilroy was. And at the end, actually, well, during the war and at the end of the war, they put out a lot of memorabilia on Kilroy. This is a legitimate pin. This is a pin issued in 1943. This is a reproduction. I'll hold up the reproduction. This is actually dated 1943 and put out by the government. Buy war bonds. Kilroy was here. Okay, somewhere along the line, somebody got creative and made a symbol of Kilroy, and it showed a bald-headed person with a huge nose, with his hands on the fence, peering over the fence. And that was probably the most popular image for Kilroy was here. Here it is here. Sometimes he has a huge nose. There were various, probably 1 million different items put out on Kilroy was here. Here's a salt and pepper shaker. One very common item was a pregnant teenager, and it says Kilroy was here. And here is a chalkware Kilroy was here, the large size girl. And Kilroy was here continued. It was not just right after the war. This is Kilroy's Inn in Des Moines, and it has this 7-digit phone number, so that means it was in the 60s that this inn, and it shows this little pregnant girl with Kilroy was here under her. Now, this is a modern drink stirrer with that same image of that little girl. So Kilroy is forever and ever and ever. It just, here's little plastic items that you put on the ends of glass, over your drink glass. So anyway, that's the story on Kilroy, and I was going to say, on the bottom of this chalkware, it says, "To Dad with love, your son." And it's dated August 1946, which is probably a fair. I don't know if it's a state fair or not, but this is considered carnival chalkware.
I hope he passed away before they characterized on, made money off of all this cartoon stuff on his name.
Yeah.
Probably could check, he was probably well enough known, he could find out when he died.
That's sad, kind of like what happens now on internet.
Ishkabibble. Now, for those of you who, I think mainly radio, listen to the radio, in the 30s, 40s, and up to 51, there was a fellow named Ishkabibble. Now, Ishkabibble, nobody knows exactly where that term came from. The word ISH, ish, means I in German, but Kabibble is just a made-up word. Now, they think possibly it was derived from a Yiddish phrase, nicht gefällt, which means it doesn't matter to me. In 1913, the words for a song were written by Sam Lewis and was named Ishkabibble. That's this one here. And, but this is 1913. I have a postcard here that says Ishkabibble, and in parentheses under it, it says, "I should worry," which is supposedly what it means. It also says, "I should worry" under that. This postcard is stamped 1911. So on the internet, you'll see references that this song spread the word Ishkabibble. But apparently, you know, they must have got the idea from other people talking about, saying Ishkabibble. Okay, there was a lot, just like Kilroy was here, there was a lot of memorabilia put out about Ishkabibble. Now, this fellow that took the stage name Ishkabibble, his name was Merwin Bogue, B-O-G-U-E, and he joined the Kay Kaiser Band in 1931. And he was with Kay Kaiser until 1951 when Kay Kaiser gave up his band. He was a cornetist and a comedian. He had what's called a pudding bowl haircut. And during the show, with Kay Kaiser's show, he would interrupt the show to recite nonsensical poems. Okay, why did he take the Ishkabibble name? Apparently, Ishkabibble, the song, was still in vogue, I guess. And it said in Chicago, the customers would dance past the Kay Kaiser bandstand and would yell over the music, "Hey, you with the trumpet, Ishkabibble, do your song." This is his autobiography, he says this fact that they were constantly yelling Ishkabibble at him, he became Ishkabibble. Everybody knew him as Ishkabibble. They were yelling his name, talking to him and saying Ishkabibble. So he says, my fans forced my stage name on me. There's another unusual name, I just mentioned it to Bob at this time, Parkiakarkus. He was a comedian on the Ed Cantor Show, and his real name was Harry Einstein. He died on stage during the roast of Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball in 1958. Milton Berle was sitting right next to him, and this Harry Einstein had a heart attack and fell over on Milton Berle. And you know, and this was 1958, so he didn't say if it was on television or not. I don't know. You know, most of those roasts are on television now, of course. 23 Skidoo. Another really popular saying that started, actually, part of it started in 1899. It was popularized during the early 20th century, and it generally refers to leaving quickly or being forced to leave quickly. It is perhaps the first truly national fad expression and one of the most popular fad expressions in the United States. Now in 1899, they used the number 23, and it meant get out of here fast. Or they would yell 23, meaning you get out of here fast. Why they use 23, nobody knows. The word skidoo, it is believed, it was used before 1902, and they believe it was derived from the word skedaddle, which means move fast or run away. Both of these slang expressions were used by George Cohan's 1904 musical play Little Johnny Jones. Here's an example out of the play. Skidoo, get 23 for yours. So they haven't merged yet as 23 Skidoo. However, in 1906, there was commercial advertising, and they would use 23 Skidoo in the advertising. And here's an example, a shoe retailer advertised a 23 skidoo sale. This is it was a little commode, till I dropped it, and now the handle's gone, and I had to glue the other pieces back together. But, and here I got a little pinback button. And these leather postcards, now leather postcards were used generally, as far as I know, they started in 1905. I haven't found any before 1905 or any references to them before 1905. But in 1909, and they were used till 1909, when the post office department decided no more leather, no more aluminum, no more wood postcards. You know, they were cracking down on it. So this really dates leather postcards. On the back, there's another reference. Here is a little poem with a girl and a gal's shoe with 23 on the bottom. It says, "What means this shoe so very new? Why 23 skidoo skidoo? But if you'll be my Valentine, this shoe, my love, will not fit you." In other words, not gonna get a kick. Okay, another very famous expression. Yes, we have no bananas.
We have no bananas today.
We have no bananas today. Frank Silver, who was a songwriter, wrote lyrics to songs. He was in New York, and he was in his office in a building, and there's several different versions of this, believe me. But it was at noontime, and he wanted a snack, and so he went down to see if there were vendors on the street, and he found a food stand owned by a Greek vendor who began every sentence with "yes." When asked if he had any bananas, he replied, "Yes, we have no bananas." Silver was so taken by that, he thought, wow, you know, there's the contradiction there. He says, but there was something neat about that phrase. So he went to his office, and his good friend, who was a songwriter, Irvin Cohen, discussed this, you know, like, what do you think, maybe I should write a song about this? So they agreed, and Silver wrote the verse, Cohen fitted it with a tune. Yes, we have no bananas today is a novelty song. It was published July 19th, 1923, and became a major hit in that year, 1923. It was such a novel tune that everybody was singing it, and all the bands were playing it. The song was the number one hit for 5 weeks. Okay, like I said, all the bands were playing it, everybody was singing it, and there was a backlash. This is the backlash. Yes, I've got the yes, we have no bananas blues. It was the answer to yes, I have no bananas today, but the lyrics were by Lou Brown and was published in 1923. This song criticized the nonsensical lyrics of the original song. Eddie Cantor and many others all sang this song, meaning this one here, and the records were released in 1923. So a lot of things happened in 1923. in regards to that song. Okay, that's everything, yeah. Okay, we've all heard throw your hat in the ring. And what this meant was back probably before the Civil War, I don't know, I couldn't get an exact date. They were talking roughly middle of the 19th century. But it said out here more in the wild, wild west, they would set up, they would go into a town and set up a ring, a boxing ring. And you would challenge, someone would challenge anybody in the crowd. And they would get up and people would bet on them, and so there'd be a winner from that challenge. Okay, they would have a referee, and if you wanted to challenge somebody, you'd throw your hat in the ring. And that meant you wanted to challenge somebody. In 1912, Theodore Roosevelt decided he was going to run again for president. He ran under the, they had a Republican, let's see, I can't remember if I wrote that down or not. Yeah, in 1912, running for president was Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, William Howard Taft, a Republican. So Teddy Roosevelt decided he was coming up with his own party, Progressive Republicans, and it was also nicknamed the Bull Moose Party because of his hunting activities. And he came up with the slogan, "My hat is in the ring." And this is the first time it was used in a political sense. Now, I found this at Collector's Extravaganza, and this lady that I've been dealing with for years and years, she says, you know, this is really unusual. I don't know if it's real. She says, but let's assume it's real, I'll sell it to you for $20. I saw on the eBay where one in 1917 sold for $285. So in this particular case, I made a good deal. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose.
So Ed, let me interrupt here. I think that Rickenbacker used that, something on their plane, I think in World War I, the hat in the ring, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
But World War I,
And
what would that
That would be
be?
1917.
17, yeah. The hat in the ring, I don't
Yeah.
know just what that was, but it had something to do with the planes.
Well, that was the emblem or the symbol for his air wing
Yeah, or
division,
something,
whatever it was.
yes.
They were the hat in the ring.
Yeah.
And it was like an Uncle Sam hat,
Yep.
you know, a
Yeah,
top hat,
Yep.
but it had
Yeah.
red, white, and blue and stars, and then it had a big ring around it.
yeah,
You
Now,
know,
let me tell you just a little story.
Okay.
A personal story, a family story. I had an uncle in the Depression who was hard up for money, and he would be the challenger out in the crowd, he'd be the playing out there.
Oh,
So if nobody challenged, then he would challenge. Well, he made $5 several nights at the carnival, and then he said, one night he's the challenger, and he said, I got in the ring, and he says, boy, this guy is pretty good. And he said, I remember he hit me, and he said, it was just like being kicked by a mule. And he said, he hit me one more time, and he said, the last thing I remember was some guy, oh, now go in and get him. A hard way to make $5.
this particular pin, I was gonna say, Teddy Roosevelt was, of course, a Rough Rider in Cuba in the 1890s, and he has this Rough Rider hat dangling in the middle of the ring. On this postcard, this moose has a spring tail. I don't know why, a spring tail. Maybe it made him spring, I don't know. But, and then it says the TR, Teddy Roosevelt hat, which is the Rough Rider hat. And it says, my hat is still in the ring. Now, what's interesting about this postcard is a back. There's no writing on the back, but there is some printing. $0.01 postage for address and sender's name. 2-cent postage for address and message. So if you wrote hi on there, you'd pay 2 cents for it.
Never heard of that.
I have one more here, Cup of Joe. Now, when I was growing up in the 40s and the 50s, I still heard that term. They still use that term, Cup of Joe. I don't know if it, I thought about going into a restaurant now and asking for a cup of Joe, see if they knew what I was talking about. Of course, it means coffee. The saying actually inspired by Joseph Daniels, who was Secretary of the U.S. Navy under President Woodrow Wilson from 1913 to 1921. His mission was to make the Navy more moral. He increased the number of chaplains and came down on prostitution on Navy bases, and also banning alcohol consumption, and instead replacing cocktails and liquor, with a suggestion to drink coffee. Now, rumor has it, sailors and officers were not happy with this. So they started to calling a cup of coffee, now became disparagingly known as a cup of Joseph Daniels. It was soon to be shortened to a cup of Joe. So that's a cup of Joe story. I've got something else that it just intrigued me at the time, because it's an unusual expression. If I can find it here, I think I put it in this folder. Jerusalem overtaker. Now, chances are, other than Bob, there's probably nobody in here who knows what a Jerusalem overtaker is.
I don't know.
Well, I had this down at the coin club.
Well, the
Well,
other
you-
night, I wasn't there the other night, if you had it there the other night.
Well, this was a long
Oh,
time ago.
yeah. I don't, my memory's not so good.
The term was first used in the American Civil War. Initially, the term referred to a type of artichoke that has a tendency to overtake the garden in which it is planted. This plant is called a Jerusalem artichoke, but it is not actually an artichoke, nor does it have anything to do with Jerusalem.
Jerusalem cherry.
But rather it is a type of a sunflower bearing a tuber that grows underground and is usually from the same family as potatoes and yams. Now it becomes a nuisance. If you have it in the garden, it just overtakes the garden. a reference to Civil War soldiers in the Iowa City Republican, May 8, 1861. They're talking about a soldier's little bag that he takes with him to war, I guess you'd say.
A ditty bag.
Yeah, ditty bag. A convenient little bag containing a pin cushion, needles, thread, buttons, court plaster, and a Jerusalem overtaker was furnished every man. Now, what intrigued me was, I was at an antique show in, it was south of Iowa City at the casino down there. They have an annual antique show. And I saw this little, it's a calling card, it's in this plastic, but it's a small calling card like this. And it's a picture of a comb with little bugs on it. Okay. The term Jerusalem overtaker was used to describe a lice comb, which would use to overtake those enemy bugs. So they provided the soldiers with a little lice comb. And I thought that was so, he wanted $2 for it, I couldn't go wrong. I just thought that was neat. Has those little bugs all over it.
I'm glad you said that because I'm trying in my mind to figure out why in the world you want a sunflower seed with that tuber in your ditty bag.
Yeah.
Those ditty bags,
Yeah, they named the comb after the sunflower.
when we were in the Navy, we had to hang our ditty bag on our bunk below, and the knot had to be so far below the rail. And I had a cousin who was in the same company, and he had his ditty bag, the knot was too low one day, and the company got a bad, mark on inspection for that. And he had to do extra duty, and boy was he mad. He said, ditty bag, he said,
Ditty bag, yeah.
an inch too low.
Well, the main thing is there was no relationship to the word undertaker then. That's what I thought it
Overtaker,
was.
it's overtaker, yeah.
Yeah.
Ed,
So, and I thought, well, maybe this supposed bulb or whatever it was, that maybe it was something that affected your health.
I guess they ate those bulbs, yeah.
They still do.
But it became such a nuisance, I planted a flower once, and that thing spread so fast, it just took over my garden. I kept pulling it out for years and years afterward. It was but crazy. I could never get it out of the ground. I think finally I got it. I think I did.
Ed, going back to your cup of joe, then there's also the expression cup of java. And of course, now we have Java Joe's, a coffee house.
Yeah, maybe.
So, do you know where the Java came from
Well, it's probably, they grew coffee there.
in Java?
Java,
I'm
yeah.
gonna guess it'd be,
See,
there's bags over hanging at Calvin in the coffee shop, and they're marked Java, they're stamped Java.
oh,
That probably is the name for coffee, and
Well, no, there's an island, a huge island out in the
Island of
Yeah.
Java. where
Indian
they grow
Ocean,
coffee.
I think it is, Java.
yeah, there's Java.
And that's where the coffee
Bags,
beans came
yeah.
from.
yeah.
And that's what
Of
Java.
Of that particular type of bean.
Yeah, yeah.
All these
I
different
mean, yeah, you get them from
countries
all
and,
over.
Sure.
the place.
and, this Asian.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, there is even the Java Sea, which is that portion of
Sure.
the Pacific that's,
Yeah. Well, do you have any questions? I kind of ran out of things to,
Is there anything you don't collect?
I'm looking for it. I told Bob this, I was up to Marion, Iowa at an antique mall in Marion, right on the square. And I found some neat items up there. I only go up there about once every 6 weeks or so. And the reason I do, my wife puts me in Iowa City because I drive her to Iowa City to see her mother, who's 103, and she's gonna be 104 in a couple of months. And they play Scrabble. You know, she's 103 and almost 104. So anyway, she wants to be there from like 12 to 3. So what am I gonna do, to twiddle my thumbs? I'm not gonna twiddle my thumbs. I'm looking for places to go, you know. So I go down to Kelowna, or I go to West Branch, or I go to Cedar Rapids, Marion, Amana. I zoom over and raid the place and come back. But I was at Marion last week, and I found some really neat things, but one thing I found, I just couldn't believe it. It's a little screwdriver about that long, has a metal handle, flat metal handle with the advertising of the garage on it, and they're very common, I see them all the time. I picked that up and I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna just turn it over, and it had a poem on it. I've never seen a screwdriver with a poem on it. I had to have that, it was $2. I found another neat item I found was a hand fan that, it was quite large. The round part was like this, and then actually the wide cardboard came down, but it was reinforced in the back with a wood. But it had, the round part was a tire, and out of the tire was the tube coming out, and it showed the old valve.
Yeah.
And but it was sectioned off, and each section had a different tread on it. It was showing what kind of different treads that company puts out, and it was from Wilton Junction, Iowa. I can't even remember the other item I bought. I bought another item. Yeah, well.
Well, I go to Mount Pleasant and I know some of the dealers there, and I get there and they'll say, you're too late. Ed's been here.
Yeah,
That was the first day.
they're glad to see me come, I tell you.
He'll be the successor
You know-
to the Kilroy was here then.
And if you want more of this, you're gonna have to start coming to Coin Club, because he does something for the Coin Club every month. He's got something that's new and different.
Well, thanks so much. This
Well,
is so interesting.
Ed, thank you.
Yeah, that's all I have right now.
That's great. Thank you very much.
But I'll keep
Any
looking,
other
you know.
questions?
Someday I'll find more.
We have refreshments in the dining room.